Hey brewers, it's Paul here, and today we're going to go over just the basic equipment you need to get started homebrewing, and then we'll go from the basic stuff up to intermediate, like partial grain on your stove, and then all the way up to all grain. I'll show you a couple different options for brewing all grain. But let's say you're brand new to the hobby, you have nothing, you don't have a lot of money, it's a recession, everything's expensive. You just want to get in on the cheap. Really all you need, number one, a fermenter, like this pail here. Doesn't have to be anything fancier than this. A cleaner, whether Diversol or PBW, something like that. And then a no-rinse sanitizer like Iodofor, or my favorite is Star San. But basically, you cannot make good beer if your equipment isn't cleaned and sanitized. So with that out of the way, once the beer's fermented, you're gonna need to get it out of here and into either some bottles or a keg. So easy way to do that without having to buy like an auto siphon. Cheapo $4 bottling wand. Put a spigot on your pail, and then you could just bottle directly from here. Now, the one downside to this is if you wanted to use dextrose, I usually boil a cup of water, mix it in, add it to the beer, and then you want to give it a little stir. And if it's in the primary here, you'll stir up the sediment. So to get around that without having to buy a separate bottling bucket from your fermenter they're a little bit pricier. I think it's about $5 for something like these Cooper's carbonation drops. And they'll just go right into the bottle, put your beer, and then just cap the bottle. That's all you need to do. Very easy, and it makes working with just a primary fermenter a lot easier. Show you the link right up here. Speaking about bottles, there's two ways you could go, plastic or glass. I personally don't have a preference. You're not gonna get off flavors from the plastic, at least from my experience. These are food grade, they're made for this purpose. If you're using plastic, you'll need some caps. These just twist on, you don't need any other tools to do anything. If you are using glass, then obviously you'll need some caps and a way to put the caps on, like a capper. So that's just the basic stuff you'd need to get going, minus a beer kit. But if you're just starting out, there's lots you can choose from. One of these Festa kits that we did a video on, you can check it out right here. Or something like Cooper's kit, one of these guys. And all you need, aside from some extra dextrose or dry malt extract, is some clean water to go with like a Cooper's kit. So that's pretty simple. Okay, so for an intermediate type of kit, like a partial grain kit, we're gonna keep all the same equipment I went over before, so same fermenter, bottles, however you wanna bottle your stuff. We're just gonna add a 5-gallon pot and a way to heat it, like your stovetop would be easiest. So basically, you'll get some malt extract, whether it's liquid or dry, and then some steeping grains, some yeast, and some hops. So what we do is put about 3 gallons of water in there, or like 12 liters, something like that. Put the grains in a steeping bag, steep them in there for about 30 minutes, add in the dry malt, boil it, add the hops as per the recipe. And then once it's done boiling, we'll cool it down, usually like an ice bath in your kitchen sink. If you're just starting out, you don't want to spend a lot of money on an immersion chiller or something. Put it into your fermenter, top it up with water, let it ferment, and then same thing for bottling as we discussed earlier. Next, we'll move on to all grain. Okay, so now we'll go over a few different all grain brewing methods. I'm going to start out with brew in a bag, commonly referred to as BIAB, B-I-A-B. For this, you're going to need a big pot. If you're doing 5 US gallon or 19 liters, around there, I would suggest going with at least a 10-gallon pot, or else you're not going to have enough room to mash your grains and you'll have to sparge. And the whole point of doing brew in a bag is you don't need to sparge. You'd get a nylon bag, something like this, line your pot with it, get your big old bag of grains, or actually before doing that, you'd put in your mash water, get it up to temperature, and then put in your grains. Put the lid on, and then just let it mash in there for an hour. Some people will put like an insulating blanket or something around here, just make sure it doesn't catch on fire if you're still near your heat source. Speaking of which, in all grain, you're gonna have around 23 to 25 liters, like around that 6 gallon or more, depending on your boil off rate. You're gonna need a way to boil that much volume. Well, your stove probably ain't gonna cut it, so you'd want something like a turkey fryer. This is the Cab 4. This is a very good propane burner. Might be a little bit overkill, but you need something really good. So once you're done mashing, you would just take out the nylon bag with your grains, let all the wort drip out. Some people would squeeze the bag. Some people say don't squeeze the bag. I don't think anything bad's gonna happen if you squeeze the bag, to be honest. I don't think you have enough pressure to extract tannins, but hey, I could be wrong. So get rid of that, and then you would get it onto your heat source. In this case, let's say a propane burner, bring it to a boil, and then same thing like the partial grain kit, you just add your hops as per your recipe. A couple things I always add when I'm brewing all grain, a World Flock tablet, just a natural clarifier. They're very inexpensive, and beer nutrient. This just helps these have a healthy fermentation. Also very inexpensive. I think this is around $5 or $6. I mean, you use half a teaspoon per batch, so this will last you like a year. Once you're done boiling, you want to try and cool this as quickly as possible. So for all grain, I really recommend investing in an immersion chiller, something like this guy here. So you'd put it in, and then you'd have some tubing, cold water in, hot water out, stir it while you're running the cold water through. And that should get you from boiling to pitching temps in 15, 20 minutes. That's really gonna depend on the temperature of your groundwater. Here in Canada in the winter, our groundwater is really cold. We measured it in the previous video. Anyway, very, very cold, as opposed to, let's say you're in Texas or somewhere where it's very hot. That's pretty much an overview of brewing a bag. We haven't done a video on this, so if it's something you're interested in, just drop a comment down below. And if there's enough people interested, I'll make a video on that. Back when I started brewing about 12, 14 years ago, when you wanted to brew all grain, a lot of people would do a 3-vessel system. Something kind of like what you see in front of me here. It's what scared me away from all grain brewing for quite a while, because this is a lot of equipment, it just looked way too complicated. But the advantage to this, over something like, let's say, a Brewzilla or a Grainfather, is you can get really big kettles, like 30-gallon kettles easily. So you could make huge batches of beer. So just a really brief overview is you'd have an HLT, a hot liquor tank. So you'd get your mash water and sparge water, heat it up in here, and then you'd have some sort of mash tun. A lot of people would just convert a Gatorade style cooler. So what they would do, take off the plastic spigot, put a ball valve on like this, and then on the inside, either put a bazooka screen or a false bottom. Either of these will stop the grain from going through the ball valve and into your boil kettle. So basically, heat up your mash water, put the mash water in, stir in the grains, and then once that's done, you would open the ball valve and have the wort go into your kettle. As far as sparging goes, there was 2 common methods. One was fly sparging. So you'd have your sparge water coming out of your hot liquor tank, spraying over the grains, and then flowing into your kettle. And people would try to match the output of their sparge water coming out to the output of the wort going into the kettle. I hope that makes sense. What I used to do when I got into this, I didn't use 3 vessels. I would do batch sparging. So basically, once I was done my mash, I had my water ready in another vessel, and I would just pour it over the top. And then from that point on, it's the same as brewing a bag. You're gonna boil your 6, 7 gallons of wort, add your hops, and then you'll need a chiller. And nowadays, I find, I don't see a lot of people with this sort of setup. Most people have moved on to like a Brewzilla or a Grainfather. Hey, how's it going? Oh, no, it's all good. All right, and the last all grain brewing equipment I wanna go over is the Brewzilla. This one happens to be the Gen 4, but what I'm gonna show you is pretty much the same for the Gen 3 and also the Grainfather. The nice thing with these units, you can use them pretty much anywhere. In the summer, I just plug this in on my deck and brew while I'm cutting the grass and stuff. It's awesome, or barbecuing. So basically, you have a control panel here. This is how you're gonna set it to your mash temperature, your boil temperature, turn off and on the pump, all that sort of stuff. Speaking of pump, I forgot a piece. There's also a recirculation arm on these units. I'll just plug it in here, and I'll show you why that exists in a minute. So basically, this is like a boiler. It's got a false bottom, so it'll block, hop chunks and stuff like that from getting stuck in the pump and into your fermenter. This is your grain basket. In the 3-vessel system, we had that external mash tun. In here, you get a grain basket, so you add your mash water, get it up to temperature, and then just stir your grains in here. Once they're all stirred in, put on the lid, put the recirculation hose in here, start the pump. You just want it at a slow flow. And this is gonna get your water circulating throughout the unit. It gets you really good efficiency. I usually get around 75, 80% efficiency easily using a Brewzilla or a Grainfather. Mash like that for an hour. Once that's done, stop the pump, and it's time to sparge. So on all the units I mentioned, you're gonna raise the grain basket, and then all the wort in here is gonna leak into the boiler. And you're gonna sparge just by pouring your water over the top. At least that's how I do it. Once that's done, set it to a boil. You'll boil in here, add your hops, all that sort of stuff. Same as the other method. And all 3 I mentioned, the Brewzilla, the Grainfather, Gen 3, Gen 4 all come with a chiller, just like this. Actually, the Grainfather has a counterflow chiller. Chill in here, put it into your fermenter, and then that's it, you're done. I hope this gives you an idea of like the different types of ways you can brew beer. And if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I try to answer every single one. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Cheers.